Remember this guy? That's Mike Comer, who we just met up with a couple of Fridays ago with 5 chainsaw carvings he wanted. Well, Mike got a hold of me and said his dad would like to have a walleye hanging on a piece of driftwood with their last name cut in the side of it. And so he drew up this sketch and sent it to him, and he said, yeah, I like that. After all, this fish is a fish that we both know a lot about. Me and the boss lady spent years on Lake Erie as I was a 6-pack charter captain for a long time. We even caught them through the ice, in this case 26 inches of ice out on the reefs. Well, anyway, I've always loved the walleye. It's been one of my favorite fish. I've caught hundreds and thousands have come off of boats I've been operating. That said, for whatever reason, I've never carved one. But we're about to change that today. So here's the setup. I'm using a Stihl MS-170 with a 16-inch bar, and I've got this thing in a jaw vise. And I drew out my lines before I started. And yes, I don't care how many of a fish you caught, you still look at reference pictures. I definitely looked at reference pictures before I drew out the silhouette of this fish. So, onto the wood. This wood is sycamore. It's a very pretty, very tight-grained wood that holds detail really well. I mean extremely well. Now, there's a catch to that. If you could imagine carving a rock, I think a sycamore tree is probably about as close as you could get to carving a rock. While hardwood trees hold detail really well, they are harder to carve. They work you, they work the equipment, and in some cases, it kind of felt like the chain was trying to crush gravel, like we were at a stone plant or something. But enough whining, I'm the one that chose to make it out of this. And you can really produce pretty stuff out of a wood like this. And you don't have to worry about it chipping off quite like you do softer woods. That said, for the most part, I would prefer softer woods. But with this kind of detail, it was a good way for me to use this particular wood. And besides, if I had the opportunity to carve a rock, if I thought I could carve a rock and get similar results to this, I would probably give it a try. I'm just kind of a knucklehead. You ever heard the expression, these guys could break an anvil? Well, I've had that said about me. This cat is about like a gargoyle. So sit back and enjoy the rest of the video. I definitely enjoyed creating this, and I think you'll enjoy watching how I put the detail into it. After all, like I said, this is the first time I've carved a walleye, and I've only been carving a little over a year and a half to begin with. So everything's a challenge, and right now I just enjoy every bit of it. Even those pieces of wood that are rock hard. Which it kind of got me wondering, you know, back when I was in school, they still paddled you. At least in elementary school, they were still paddling you. And I'm not going to comment on whether they should probably still be paddling people or not. It's kind of obvious, but I'll tell you what. If I had to imagine what that principal was using when I got paddled, it was probably this kind of wood. Except they would drill some holes in it so it'd flow through the air faster so they could hit you harder, I think. But anyway, enough of that. Sit back and watch, and I hope you enjoy. Now, hands down, when it comes to doing work on these fins, this has got to be my favorite tool. Quarter die grinder with this Bauer pointy burr. It just lets you put the detail in, really realistic detail into the fins, and it just does beautiful work at that. Now for the scales, I just use this little round stone. It's kind of blocked off. And I just take it up through there and just stabbing it into the wood as I go. In the case of this wood, I really had to press hard. But that said, it does a nice job. It makes a real nice, realistic looking scale. And that's the advantage of using a tight grain wood like this. Even though it's harder to carve, it holds the detail really well. Once you put that mark in there, it's never gonna come back out. It's gonna be there, and this thing's gonna look beautiful for many, many years. Now for the driftwood stand, we had a piece of sassafras. It was about 5 years old. It had been laying out kind of rotten. And actually this was a perfect piece for it. It had all kinds of like knurling and old branch parts on it that we could work with that would look really neat on the bottom and on the sides. And it just made it look real, like, you know, real tree, real piece of driftwood or log in the water there. And so we added some extra cuts in there to the top. And then in the circle in the back here, what I'm doing is I'm cutting out some of the section up above to make the log look from the top appearance like it's hollow. And also I made a way for me to be able to better tackle making my connections to my fish to attach it to this piece. That said, this is a lot better piece of wood for carving in general. After all, it's a lot softer. And as you'll see later, you can really carve into this wood when you're trying to do letters, and it really stands out. It burns the wood really well. You don't have to do anything else to make the letters stand out. It's just beautiful. It's a decent soft wood. And sassafras, just like the leaves, just like the tea, it smells just like that when you're carving it. It smells really good. It's really pleasant. So here's the front of this fake log. And that's basically a saddle. I didn't clean it up too good because the fish covers it. But then what we did is we created this hollowed out effect. And then there's a channel right there that we can go ahead and, hey, look at that big old ant, man. That thing is big old ant. But anyway, that's where our tackle's gonna go in here to attach the fish to the post. And we're gonna paint this hole black. I think it'll look really good, make it look realistic. All right, I just got this thing clear coated. And I mean, man, does that thing look good. It's shiny, looks wet. And actually, I'm gonna follow it up, keep it looking that way, nice and shiny, like a walleye just coming out of the water. And I mean, for a burned piece, I mean, that looks really good. You could have painted it, but I'd say any walleye angler who's seen a ton of walleyes would say, man, you know what? For a carving that's not painted, just burnt and clear coated, that looks pretty realistic. All right, that's what we got, folks. Come back when you can stay later, you smuck.